Okay, so welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn how to create a simple title block using Inventor. On the screen, I have some quick examples of typical border size that you're going to see in any kind of drafting or engineering field. You can see we have the A, B, C, D, and E, and of course these sizes can go larger, but these are the most common ones that you're going to hear people talk about. And remember how we get the sizes is that we usually double the smaller one and carry over the larger one. Here's a quick look at the architectural border sizes. And lastly, let's take a look at the metric. The one thing that you notice about the metric sizes is that the A0 is typically the largest size, and then they work their way down to the A4, which is going to be our normal paper size. And these dimensions are in millimeters. Switching over to Inventor, the way that we're going to start out by creating our title block is that I'm going to open a drawing. And now you first have to determine which units that you're going to be using. So I always like to make sure by using the tablet, or the template I should say. So you can see the drop down here, it's located on new, and the words here is new, so you can click the toolbar at the top. I'm going to use the English units since I'm going to make this title block in inches. And then I'm going to choose the ANSI IDW, and then I'll select create. So once Inventor opens up, it usually will start with a D size. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete both of the title block and the border that's going around it. The way you would do that is underneath sheet 1, right click and choose delete. Do the exact same thing for the title block. The next thing I have to do is I have to tell Inventor what size title block that I'm going to create, or what size paper that I want to use. So I'm going to right click on sheet 1, and then I'll come to where it says edit sheet. Once you click edit sheet, you're going to get this dialog box going to appear underneath the drop down. And remember, all of those sizes that we talked about before, they are listed here. And I'm going to use a B size. You can see that the dimensions are here. It's a 17 by 11. And go ahead and select OK. If you want this to be in a portrait mode, you do have that option here. And you can also tell it where the orientation is. That's basically where I'm going to put my title block. Okay, so go ahead and select OK. Now you can see that your page should have shrunk down a little bit. Let's go ahead and start defining our border that's going to go around our title block. Underneath the drawing references, expand it, and then you have the border one. If you double click here, it's going to put in that default border, but we want to create a new one. So on the borders icon here, do a right click and tell it that you want to define a new border. Once you select it, your ribbon at the top is going to change the sketch, and you're going to have these little 4 nodes at the end of the corners. These are going to represent the end of the paper. So I'm going to start by creating a rectangle, and I'll make it fit on the inside of this paper, and then I'll use the dimensions. So now I have to tell it how far do I want it off the edge of the paper for my border to sit. Some people are the typical sizes is anywhere from 0.25, and I have seen it as high as 0.5. So I'm just going to type in 0.25 here, and I'll do the same here. Okay. Now I have to also define the other corner, so I've defined one corner, and you have to choose the opposite corner. So I'm going to select here, and if I type in 0.25 here, and I'll do the same dimension here. Okay, the border, or the zone that goes around it, has now been defined. You can see that it is fully constrained, and just to confirm that, here in the bottom right corner, you see the words fully constrained. If you're done with this, go ahead and select Finish Sketch, and now it's going to ask you to name it. I'm just going to tell it that I have named this B-size. I just want to make sure it's something different from what's standard or some of the other names that have been listed there. Go ahead and select the Save. And the next thing I want to do is define the title block. So I'll select title block, and once again you have some standard ones that are listed here. I'll go ahead and right click on title block, and then I want to define a new title block. It's always a good idea before you create a title block is to sketch it out and understand the dimensions that you're going to be creating. I'm going to start off with a rectangle, and I want this to fit going all the way across my B size. So I know that I've taken off 0.25 from each end, or an overall of 0.5. So that's going to set my length of this thing, should be at 16.5. So I'm just going to give this a dimension, 16.5. You'll notice that I don't have those 4 nodes on the corner, so I don't need to worry about positioning this in the reference to the paper. Remember, we defined that when we were setting up our sheet. I'm just going to move this over a little bit just so it fits on my paper. And I'll just use the move command. It's asking me to select the objects that I want to move. I'm just going to put a window around it. Select base point. Pick this end point, and then you can see as I move it over, I just want it to fit right on my paper. It doesn't matter if it's centered or even or any of that stuff on the sides. Okay, I'll select done. Let's go ahead and add another dimension here. And let's tell it that we want this to be 1 tall. So 1 inch tall. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put 3 lines in this because I want to break it up into 4 separate columns. So I'll go with a line. And I'll make sure that those lines are vertical. Remember that you can use constraints at the top if you don't make it vertical. So I'll make this last one a little sideways. And what I mean by that is that you can always straighten it up by using the vertical constraint and selecting the line. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the bottom portion of this by using the trim command. So I'll trim the tops and the bottoms. Okay, to keep these equally spaced out, I have 4 individual slots that I want to be even with. So when I add a dimension from here to here, I'll go ahead and place that dimension. And now I'm going to select my 16.5 dimension, and I'll divide that by the number of spaces that I have, which is 4. And you're going to see that it will figure that number out for me. I'll dimension from here to here. And I'll just select this dimension and hit enter. Dimension from here to here. Place that dimension, and I will select that as well. Okay, so now I have all of my areas here equally spaced out the way I want them. Next, let's go ahead and put some text in them. So I'm just going to kind of zoom into this box here, and then I'll start defining the text that I want. Here's a quick layout of what I'm going to attempt to do. Some of these numbers are not going to be exactly the same. For example, this distance of 2, it's going to be actually in the middle of that, and you can remember that our number is 4.125, so it's going to be half of that number. So let's go ahead and start sketching or creating this type of text to fill out in our title block. Okay, so let's go ahead and select the word text so we can start defining the text that we want to put here. Select text, and then your ribbon at the top should change. And right now it's asking me to click a location where I want it. I'm just going to click here. And it took a little bit for that dialog box to appear. Okay, so now it's appearing. The justification of where I want my text is going to be, and that's going to be located here at the top. So I'm going to use the left corner, and it's going to be the top of that. That's what's going to define my text. Next, I'm going to tell it the text height that I want to use. And in this case, I want that text height to be 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to type in 0.125. I'll select here. And now I'll start typing in the word scale. I'll make sure I turn my caps lock on. And I'll also put a colon behind it. And select OK. If you take a look at that text, you can see that that is a node at the top left corner of it. Let's go ahead and place some dimensions on that. So I'll dimension from here to here. And I want that to be 0.0625. So 1/16 of an inch. I'll do the same going this direction. It's the exact same number, so I'll go ahead and select that dimension and you'll see that it will place my text where I want it. The next text I'm going to place is going to be located directly in the center here. So I'll go back up to the word text. I'll go ahead and click a location for it. And then I'll wait for my dialog box to appear. Now this one I want it to be something that I can fill in. So instead of using a standard I property or things of that nature, I just want it to be a prompt entry. And this is going to allow it to, anytime when I bring my title block in, it's going to ask me, or this text right here will be editable. Okay, so I like to usually keep it between these less than and greater than symbols. And then I'm going to type in the word scale. Go ahead and select OK. And you can see that there's a couple of things I did not do on this one. I actually didn't change the justification, and I did not modify the height. If you have made this mistake, you can go back, make sure you escape out of the command, and then if you double click on the words, you'll get your dialog box to come back and appear. So I wanted this to be middle, centered, justified. Make sure that it is selected, and then change the text height to 0.875. Sorry, to 0.1875. Okay, so now that I have this changed and edited, I'll go ahead and put the dimensions that I need on this one. So from this corner to the center node of my text, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to make it a function of this one, so I'll select this dimension and divide it by 2. Next, I'll put a dimension from here to the center node, and then I'm going to select this dimension and divide that by 2. Okay, so now my text is directly in the middle. And now I'm going to copy this in each one of those boxes. And that's going to allow me to be able to change each one of these and fix it the way I want it to be fixed. Okay, so I'll choose the copy command. I'm going to select this top text here and the text that I just created. Select a base point. And what I like to do is select this bottom corner. And now I can select this corner. Keep going, I'll select this corner. And finally, this corner. Okay, let's go ahead and escape out of this. And now I can go ahead and change each one of these boxes to what I want it to be. So I'll double click the word scale. And once my dialog box appear, I'm going to change this to say name. I'll do the exact same thing to here by double clicking. Wait for my dialog box to appear and change the words on the inside of this to name. I'm going to pan over here to my next box. Double click. I'll change this to project. Select OK. Double click the word scale and change that to project. Okay, in my third box, I do want that to appear to be scaled. And in this last box, I'm going to double click and I'm going to change this to the word date. And in this bottom one, I'm going to change this to where it comes in and it fills out something automatically for me. So once you double click on this one, I'm just going to remove this one altogether. I'm going to change it from a prompt entry to a standard property. It's going to ask me what do I want to use, and it's going to be whatever model that I have going on. And then I have to tell it what date I want it to be used. Well, in this case, I wanted it on the creation date. So once I select that, then I'm going to select this little X just to add it into it. Okay, now you see I have the word creation date here. Let's go ahead and hit the OK button. So when I create this one or I insert the title block, the date is going to automatically fill out with whatever model on the creation date that I made it. Let's go ahead and select the finished sketch. Then I'll have to give it a name as well. And I'm just going to call this something simple. Let's just call it title. Hit the save button. Okay, and now this is ready to be added into any drawing that I have created. So I'm on sheet 1 right now. I'll double click the B-size title block, or I'm sorry, the B-size border that goes around it. And then if I want to put the title block in, I'm just going to double click the word title, and you're going to see those prompt entries will come up. I'll just hit OK. You can see this stuff fills out. There is no date because I don't have any kind of drawing or anything that's attached to this. But that's one quick way of making a title block. So when you're done with this one, you want to make sure that you do save this and save it in a location where you know where it's at. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a simple save on this. And I clicked on the Save As button, but it's the exact same thing if you do the save. And I'm just going to save it in a location that I know where it's at. And I'm going to give it this name of title.idw. And once you do that, you're going to know where it's located at, and we're going to use this for future reference. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching it.